Today I got Blaythe from No Cure. Super excited to chat with you, Blaythe. I will say we have so Cullen's not on the call today. He's got a thing going on, but typically when we record, usually it's like a band that is not on tour in the moment.
Sure,
But if
sure.
they are on tour, usually we interview them either like well before their show, or there has been like once or twice we've interviewed somebody literally right before the show. But this might be the first time I've ever interviewed anybody after they have played a show. Like you literally like moments ago were on stage playing a show, and now you're sitting with me hanging out right now. Obviously, listeners are going to be like, days away from the time that they're hearing this, from the time that you played whatever show you played today. But yeah, this is the first time I've interviewed anybody right after they played a show. I don't know if like you're tired after a show. I don't know what it's like for you, but it's kind of cool that you literally had just played a show.
Well, yeah, Mason, I appreciate you having us on. Well, us is me. I don't know why I pluralized myself. That's a peculiar.
Are you like God now or what?
I've been working on that actually, but I don't. That's beyond the scope of No Cure interview today. But yeah, so we just played at Preserving Underground in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, New Kensington kind of area. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, we finished about 20 minutes ago. I went to the merch table, sold some shirts, whatever, and now I'm doing this, and
Look at that.
that's what you do sometimes. I gotta grind.
You got to grind. I mean, well, it's No Cure. Like, it's not as if you can just get Taylor Swift type of access to the industry. You gotta work your ass off, right?
I am from Alabama. There is no industry.
Yeah, it's, yeah. The industry is when like Furnace Fest happens in Alabama once a year. That's the industry.
Yeah, or like the DIY shows that we do at the skate park. That's what there is.
That's about it. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Well, I definitely want to talk about Furnace Fest later, but how did the show go today? I mean, you mean you're literally moments away from the time that you were on stage. So how did a show in Pittsburgh go?
So we've played Preserving a few times now. We played the super small DIY room, which was really cool. That was like in 2022, which was pretty early on in the band's history. We played the like underground room with Chamber. I want to say early 23. I don't really know anymore.
Okay.
And then earlier this year, we played the big chapel, real venue
Oh,
room
dang.
there with Boundaries and Orthodox, and that was fucking crazy.
Damn.
I didn't ask if I'm allowed to swear. You never told me if I could or couldn't.
You can say whatever words you want to say on this podcast.
Great. I like to say many words. But yeah, so today we played the Underground again, but it's like a different setup now. So we played every setup that has existed at Preserving Underground. But yeah, today on stage, I was having a lot of thoughts, as one does. And I was really impressed with how much people that were here already knew the words to songs we just put out. Like, I did not anticipate that at all. Like, you can like
Mm,
tell when someone like is like following along and like they're not like right off the rip with it, you know? So that
right.
was a really cool thing because normally, there's moshers at our shows, but there's definitely more people like singing along and like climbing on me and doing, the hardcore thing, which is the whole point. I think it's awesome. So that was very affirming to see that when we put out the record, what, 3 days ago? So
Yeah,
pretty cool.
it's been just a few days. What at what point did it feel like in your guys' career? And I want to hear more about like the very beginning, but I'd love to hear this first. Is at what point did you guys feel like, oh, like this could be a thing? Because I mean, you guys tour a lot now.
Yeah.
You guys are playing a lot of shows. At what point did you feel like, oh, like we're not just going to be a band that's just stuck in Birmingham playing Birmingham shows, but we could actually go across the nation and play shows, and people will show up and they will sing our songs and they will mosh and they will enjoy themselves, like, and they'll buy our merch. Like there had to have been like, because you guys couldn't have just done that like immediately off the bat. Like it takes like some time, and at some point you feel like maybe that pendulum switches or swings a little bit, where you feel like, oh, now we can actually go across the nation. Or maybe you already started, you were doing that and like there was no traction, whatever, and then all of a sudden now people are showing up to your shows and they know the words, and at some point that would have happened, right? And I'm curious, like right now, where did that feel like that was starting to happen?
So for myself internally, I don't really use the pendulum metaphor as much.
Okay.
For me, the metaphor I've been stuck on since a conversation I had with Ryan Latrue in like 2014 is pushing a boulder. I've been stuck on that since then.
Oh, great.
And the No Cure boulder, I started pushing that boulder before we were a band. This is not my first band. I've toured a lot doing, guitar for bands or merch or tour managing, whatever. I've been booking shows for a very long time in Alabama now. Same with Aesop, our guitar player. She's been booking shows too. So we had a lot
Hmm.
of groundwork laid down for this band before we even knew this band was going to be a band. If that makes any sense? Because like we were already really integrated into the community.
Right.
People, we had friends in a bunch of cities, at least adjacent to Alabama. And like for myself, I knew a lot of people just from touring a lot because I've been hitting it as hard as I can as soon as I was like in late high school. I've just been really trying to create something that mattered since I knew that you could make music like this.
Hmm.
So it's been a slow burn on that, but definitely for me with No Cure, on our first few runs, like we could already tell, I could at least tell that this is different than other bands I had done prior, and I don't think that we like play songs particularly any better than bands I've been in or anything like that. It's just
Cool.
there's an energy around it that I can't really explain, but I can perceive it, and it's been nice. But there's been a couple moments that felt kind of breakouty, even though we haven't broken out or anything. But like just like the boulder has moved. The Gideon
Right.
tour that we did early this year, very different world of music from us, but we were playing to a lot more people than like the DIY tours that I had been booking for us prior to that, right?
Hmm.
And I could just tell that we were like actually winning over completely new people that didn't know really like how bands like us work or like what straight edge is or anything like that. They didn't care. They were like, "This is cool. I like this. This is heavy." And I was like, "All right, come on, let's go." So they kind of jumped on the bus something, and that was a
Yeah.
pretty affirming tour just to be put in front of just casual enjoyers of metalcore and be like, "You want to see something crazy?" And they're like, "Yes."
Yeah, that's where like I really respect just like the general like world of heavy music is almost like I mean maybe there's some outliers, but for the most part any heavy band that has had any level of success is a band that has literally worked their ass off, right? Like I feel like I talk about them pretty frequently, and they're not even like close to my favorite band or anything, but it's just like such a big thing right now. Is obviously like we just saw Knocked Loose a few weeks ago on Jimmy Kimmel, and we think of a band like Knocked Loose of they came from the same world that like you guys are all kind of playing where I mean I know that they're in Kentucky and not Alabama, but like here's a band like a metalcore band from the South that has worked their ass off and over 10 plus years have gotten to the point now where they're on national television
Yeah.
in front of millions and millions and millions of people. And to me, it's like that is a testament of like how long that takes for a band that sounds like a metalcore band
Yeah.
to get to that point where they have any level of that kind of stardom. Whereas like any pop band could like release one single and all of a sudden they're at that kind of level of where they could be on a Jimmy Kimmel. But a band like No Cure or Knocked Loose has to work for 10 plus years before they can even get to that point. And so it's just really a testament to like how hard you guys have to work. And I think I just respect the hell out of anybody who's willing to work that hard in music to get to even some level of quote unquote success.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a grind. And I mean, I remember Knocked Loose playing shows to 10 kids in Alabama, and
Right.
then I did a show for them at the skate park, Insanity in like Huntsville area, and that was the different shade of blue like release shows. And it
Hmm.
was like, who are all these people? It was like 300 kids. And like at the time, I was like, this is crazy. This band is really doing it. And then it's like now they're worth thousands and thousands of tickets. It's just cool to see another band from, not the coastal elite cities just do a bunch of cool stuff. So I have nothing but respect for what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I'd love to hear just kind of your involvement of like how you got into eventually No Cure. Obviously, you mentioned a little bit ago that you started out playing in lots of different bands and you were booking bands and now obviously you're No Cure. So, yeah, how did you get involved in music? Like, were you one of those kids that, when you were 12 years old, you got a guitar or whatever and started playing music and that somehow got you into all of this? But yeah, I'm just curious, what was that story for you?
Sure. So I started playing guitar around when I was 10 or 11, and I found like that I was interested in the more aggressive stuff pretty fast. I mean, there's definitely like Scorpions on in my house growing up, and like Blue Oyster Cult, which isn't aggressive
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
but like
Right.
there's some Judas Priest too, and I was like, I like that one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so I started like learning guitar a little bit, and then I found Avenged Sevenfold, and I was like, this is crazy.
Mm.
But when I was 12, my friend at the time's older brother took us both to go see a band called My Children, My Bride play a hometown show.
Wow. Yep.
Because I'm
Yeah,
from
yeah.
like Madison, Huntsville, North Alabama region originally, and that's exactly where MCMB
Yep.
is from. So I went to that show. I was 12. I remember it was like my brain was like being put through a washing machine. Like every detail just soaked into me. And I just didn't know
Had you never you never even listened to My Children, My Bride before then, or like even listened to metalcore before, really? Other than maybe I don't I mean maybe you would identify Avenged Sevenfold as metalcore, but yeah, like had you listened to music that heavy before?
No, not really. I think I was aware of like Bring Me the Horizon and
Okay.
like annotations of an autopsy, which is like, some pretty out there pig squeal deathcore MySpace shit. I was like loosely aware of that, but like I didn't really like it. But
Right.
then I went to the MCMB show and I checked them out in advance. It didn't really resonate with me at first, but when I got there and I was like in the room, like feeling what was happening and just seeing the scene of it, I like was like, what is this? How do I do this? And I immediately like I've like since that moment I changed everything. Like I was like a really nerdy kid. I was in like chess club and a bunch of stuff like that. And I was like, no, now I'm rocking. I'm going to rock. So it was a
Did you did
go ahead.
did you stage dive or mosh? Like, did you even have any idea what that even was?
I mean, I was very skinny when I was young, so I'm very tall. I'm tall now, but you know, I was I've been over 6 feet for a very long time, but I weighed like 50, 60 pounds less at one point, and I'm not a super big guy now, so it's like I was a little beanpole kid. So I was just staring at the show, just breathing every bit of it in. I mean, I started moshing at shows when I was like 13 or 14 or so, but when I was 12 at my first show, I was just like just soaking it up like a sponge and just trying to understand
Wow.
what it was. It was beautiful to me.
What was it something that you felt like at 12 years old? I mean, obviously it sounds like maybe within a year you were already like super into it, but at 12 years old, for like that first time you're watching My Children, My Bride, were you like, okay, I don't really get what this is, but I'm actually really intrigued, but I don't necessarily know if I like it. Did you feel like kind of all those things kind of intertwining at the same time where you're like, I'm intrigued, I really don't get it, but also I am like I'm just really like I'm interested in what's going on. Like did you feel like all of that was happening at the same time when you're watching those guys play?
I liked it immediately, honestly.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, this is what music sounds like. Finally, I found what music sounds like.
So I mean I think in some way shape or form I kind of experienced that, but when I first heard like my first introduction to super heavy stuff was bands like Life in Your Way. I don't know if you ever heard of Life in Your Way.
Very long. I'm
Um
not super looped in with them, but I know the band exists.
yeah, like kind of melodic. No, that's not the word.
Melodic.
Melodic.
Yeah.
Like switching the consonants around. Melodic, hardcore, and then Norman Jean would have been like one of the first kind of bands too. And I still remember kind of being like, I don't really like it, but I was so intrigued. I'm like, I just don't understand what it is, but there's just like one little tiny bit of a song that is really wanting me to be interested in this.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of that heavy music first was introduced. And then it really wasn't until Under Oath and They're Only Chasing Safety that I was like, okay, this is kind of like a combination where it's poppy enough
Yeah.
where my like 10-year-old or 11-year-old ears could be really intrigued or
hmm
like interested in this. And also it's heavy enough where there was like that heavy aspect that I was like really intrigued by, like that was prevalent too. So it really wasn't until Under Oath that I really got into all of that. But bands like Norma Jean or Life in Your Way, I was always like, oh, there's just something about this I'm really intrigued by, but I don't quite get it, but also I can't really take my ears off of it either.
Sure.
So yeah, anyway. But it's interesting that like right away you were like super into it. Like it wasn't a sort of I mean, I'm sure it helps when you've got a household that might be listening a little bit to Judas Priest.
Yeah. I mean, Judas Priest is fucking cool. Their new record, I liked it. I think it was last year now, but I did like it.
Yeah. They're a sick band.
Yeah,
They're a sick band. They hold up the test of time. I get that. So, well, so that was like your first introduction. Like, at what point did you realize, okay, like I really like this music, but now I actually want to play this music? Like,
sure.
what was that catalyst for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I was a nerdy kid. I always liked Dungeons and Dragons, and I thought I was going to be a physician, kind of thing. Like I was in the medical field. Like that was my plan until like through high school, honestly. Like I thought like, oh, I'll have fun
Dang.
playing music, but like it's not a viable thing. So it took me a while to like wrap my head around the possibility of like you can really just kind of do that. And that's not really the full truth, you know? Like you can do it, but unless you're doing really well, you can't really just do that. But that's neither here nor there. Everyone figures out a side hustle to like make this work.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't answer your question. Can you rephrase it for me? I'm sorry.
No, no. So, like, what? At what point did you feel like, okay, this is not just music that I really enjoy listening to, but is like music that I want to like participate in and enjoy
Gotcha.
to a degree where I'm playing it, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you, at some point, you picked up a guitar and were like, I'm gonna play this music. So, like, what was that sort of catalyst of wanting to play this music, wanting to be in a band? Not necessarily even like the first band, but you're just like, I'm gonna pick up a guitar and try to play this music, and maybe that could land me into playing a band.
Yeah, so I wanted to play guitar already before I found like heavier music just because I thought it was cool and I liked to do it. It was very like stimulating to like learn new stuff. I still like learning songs on guitar even though I am singing in a band now, which is still kind of weird for me. Like my internal identity is still so much like I am a guitar player, if that makes any sense.
Right.
But it's coming together a little bit. But yeah, so I played my first show when I was 14. It was like a metalcore, deathcore, very derivative of what was already happening kind of band, but I had fun with that.
Right.
And since I was 14, I have never like just not been in a band. I always had a new one coming together where I could tell the current one was kind of falling apart. But yeah, I don't know. I just once I started knowing about like heavier stuff, I was like, I want to do that. And then I went to every show I could as a teenager. I mean, I still go to a show every day, pretty much. When I'm on tour, I'm at a show, and then I go to the shows a
Right.
lot. And
Got
for a guy,
you're paid to go there, so you better show up.
yeah, and I mean, at home, I am there as much as I can. And yeah, I don't know. That just became such a key part of who I am that it's just second nature.
Well, I do you think your parents ever wish that maybe at some point the physician route will matriculate or materialize?
They have both made it very clear at various points of my life that I'm making a critical mistake, and I am uninterested in their advice in that realm.
I would imagine so. Well, here's what I'll say. You don't know me at all, but pursue the dreams that you love, right? Like, this is clearly something that you love, and it brings you a lot of life right now.
Hmm.
And there's only so much of life where you're going to be able to get on stage and jam out with some of your friends and just be able to be crazy for a while. There's very few times in your life where you're gonna be able to do that, and you're gonna have a long time in your life to be able to become a physician or whatever it is that you end up being, right? Like I often think about that for myself. Like I was really into sports for a while, and
Sure.
I'm like I'm gonna hold on to like being able to be an athlete as long as I can because at some point the athlete thing for sure is gonna end, and I'm not gonna be able to hold on to that forever. So I was like I'm gonna hold on to that as long as I can, and it's part of me really wishes I never, even though I was super into music, I never actually got myself into like playing music. And part of me is like now I really wish like I had that part of me where I could like be in a band for maybe a couple years and just like hold on to that for a second because I very well know that whatever music that I would potentially even create would not be the kind of music where I'd be able to do that for the rest of my life. So I'm just like, oh, there's just these moments where you can only get to do something like this for a certain amount of time, and you just got to hold on to that and cherish every moment of it. Maybe you feel similarly or not, but I would imagine maybe to some degree.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm a very, I guess, is it douchey to describe myself as ambitious? I don't know if it's douchey to say that I'm an ambitious person. I'm sorry,
No,
but
sure.
I have lots of goals in life, and I was just talking to Tom Lovejoy earlier. He's filling in on guitar for Vomit Forth right now. Just talking about how like there's so many records I want to write that I don't have time to write that in bands I'd like to do, and I don't know, like there's other things outside of music that I would love to do. Like I like video games. I'm sure something in that world would make me quite happy too. But this is a very hard thing and it's come together in a way that most people don't get to experience. So I'm going to do this until I can't. I mean, if No Cure broke up tomorrow, I would just make another band and I would do that. And if that band
Right.
broke up, there's no limit to good metal bands I'm willing to try to make.
Right. I love that. I love. I mean, especially if the fact that like you're the kind of person that just has like all of these different like interesting ideas.
Hmm.
That like for you, or you're like, this is the kind of thing that this music needs right now. I think that's like super important. That actually that was a question I was going to ask. Is especially because it does seem like you write quite a bit. Like you're a huge part of like what makes No Cure the No Cure sound. One of the things that I'm curious about is, so again, like you start playing guitar at let's say 12, 13, however old you were when you're starting to play guitar, and you mentioned like you were starting to play a lot of like other people's songs,
Hmm.
which is how everybody plays guitar. That's how you learn. At what point did you feel like, oh, not only, and even with some of the early bands that you were a part of, you mentioned like something along the lines of like, you were playing a lot of like generic, maybe like deathcore or whatever. At what point did you feel like, oh, there's like a particular sound I'm going for that nobody's doing, but like could be a really like something that you artistically would really love to hear? Like at what point did you feel like, oh, that was a switch there of like, oh, there's a certain kind of sound I can create out of my guitar that is maybe different or maybe sets me apart from just like any generic thing that I have been trying to replicate or whatever. Like do you kind of get what I'm
Yeah,
saying like
yeah.
there? Yeah. Was there a point for you where that like that switch came on where it's like, oh, this is something that was different that I'm able to create, that like this is my, like I'm able to create maybe my own footprint into this music than just like trying to replicate somebody else.
I mean, I've been like writing music since I was 14. That's like when I really started like trying to like write music in bands I was in. But like I didn't make anything that mattered in any capacity beyond like my friends at local shows for, quite a long time. So honestly, not until like the second No Cure record was I like, okay, there's something different here now
Mm,
that I'm getting a better grasp of. Because I've done some really like riffy, more death metal, actual like riffy bands, and I've done some more like goofy metalcore bands, and I've toured in hardcore bands, and I've done a lot of the stuff in that sphere. But the particular blend that Aesop and I have like cooked up for No Cure, I think is pretty cool. I don't know, I like it a lot.
is it something working with Aesop, or was there even like a moment where you're just like doodling around in your room or whatever, you're messing around with a riff and you're like, it's just this like light bulb lights up? Or I'm just really curious, like, is there that like specific moment, or is it more of like a process of just like working with maybe someone like Aesop where, yeah, you just like at some point this kind of moment where it all seems to click where, oh, I'm creating something maybe a little different here? Or yeah, maybe it is like that like light bulb moment where you like got a riff and you're like, that's the thing I need to like go
Yeah,
after.
I don't know. I mean, now No Cure stuff has a lot of identity, and a big part of that
Yeah.
is due to Aesop, honestly. Like, I never had someone with that much vision in other bands I was in.
Mm,
Not no disrespect to all my old friends or whatever, but like Aesop has an eye and an ear for things, and I'm good at making her ideas a real thing that, we can put on a measure and hear back and it's like a piece of
right.
music, and I'm good at like taking the seed of an idea she has and blooming it into a song. If that makes any sense. I mean, like
Mm,
there's
hmm.
I write my own, full compositions as well, but like definitely once she got more into writing, it's been very helpful. And honestly, it's like the way she looks at the world has really affected me. And I don't know, I'm just really thankful for her. And it's nice to have someone like that in my corner. And I think if I made a new band even without her, I would still have learned so much from
Right.
her that it would be fine. I don't know. She just has vision. And a lot of times I was just making something to make something. But like there's like a
Right.
box, and we operate within the box, and every record we push the box and move it around a little bit, right? But I don't know. I was missing something before this band because every band I've done since I was a teenager, like I toured, I did the things you're supposed to do, but for whatever reason, the music I was making was not resonating with people. So
Right.
that's all I can blame is, I mean, I get better every time, but like, I don't know, the factor of Aesop really changed things because she has a very different perspective. Like, and it's weird because like she couldn't play guitar before No Cure, like at a fundamental level. I'm not even being mean. Like she was bending every chord out of tune. She was looking between her hands, like her picking in her fretting hand. And so like part of the process has been like me like kind of teaching her how to play guitar a little bit. And she's come so far, and like that's super rewarding for me to see as well. I love that. So like her perspective as like of like being a novice at first, like was super interesting. And then like I had to like make sure that the riffs we were doing were like within a reasonable skill level for someone kind of like learning how to play guitar, which affected the sound because I had a tendency to write very like riffy guitar player music before that. So dialing that back, I didn't realize it at the time, but now I realize it and I am thankful for it. Allowed me to write maybe more catchy music and like leave more room for an interesting vocal delivery or like a drum moment or whatever, like something like actually
Right.
get people singing along or vibing with it. It just really changed everything for me.
Yeah. Yeah, do you think she like brought this level of really great ideas for songs, but I mean obviously it sounds like when at least when she started like didn't know exactly how to execute some of those ideas, and you were like maybe helping maybe the execution, or like did she actually come in with not exactly the best ideas, or I'm just curious like around that
Hmm.
is because it sounds like she really has like this really interesting way of thinking about composition. But I'm curious, like, did she come in with that, like, that kind of talent of composition, or was that something that needed to be refined as well as her guitar work? I'm just curious, like, around that process.
Well, she's I've known her for a very long time in like adjacent bands. She always played drums in like D beat or like really fast hardcore, like not moshing hardcore, like actual
Right.
fast hardcore bands. So like I was always aware of her, and her experience in those bands have been super valuable too. But like the typical process, even from like our first EP from the for the Stainless Steel, I'm sorry, she would come over to my house and have like 3/4 to 1.5 riffs, and she'd play it for me and then be like, okay, now what? And I'd be like, what if we took that part and then put it into a stomp and then do a blast section and bring back the intro riff because we got to have, some continuity because I like continuity in songs. I don't really like writing riff salad too much. And then we would just have a song. And when I write, I commit super fast. If I hear something in my head and I think it's cool, I'm like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
that's how the song goes now, which can be annoying, I'm sure, for people that are forced to work with me, subjected to working with me. But I'm right a lot now, which is nice because I've been writing songs for a long time. I've like
Yeah.
pruned the idea tree as I've gone. Of like, oh yeah, doing that into that sucks dick. To never do that. So
Right.
like it gets optimized over time, and maybe one day people will say everything I write sounds the same, and I'll be like, maybe it does. I don't know, but I have a lot of songs now, so I hope you like them. Kind of vibe. I don't know.
Right. Right. No, I love that. You sort of like, nope, take it or leave it, but like this is what you're gonna get from me,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate. Let's talk about the new album. So like you mentioned, it's been a few days now. I Hope I Die Here. Uh, Unbelievable. I just like unfortunately it came out so recently that it's like not an album that we would have been able to review for like our top, albums of 2024. So it might be able to sneak in for top 25 or for 2025. But it's absolutely just like, I mean, a lot of your albums, like they're, a number of songs, 7 or 8 songs or whatever, like under 20 minutes. But like this does feel like it's more, but well, first off, better produced. I do think the songwriting has gotten better. I mean, obviously that's something you guys are priding yourselves on, but I think you guys are just getting better as songwriters, and it's just more well produced. It does sound like just even like you guys are getting better at your instruments,
Appreciate that.
as part of it too. So it was just everything overall. This is just by far, without question, the best No Cure album. And it's just unbelievable. So that's my own like little short review of it. But I'm just curious, like what are your own reflections on this album? Like when you guys hear this album for the first time, maybe it was a number of months ago or not, but what was your first reflections, especially in comparison to the past couple records?
Sure. So kind of the format that I've been pursuing with this band is like the longer EP kind of format and like have something to kind of semi quickly follow up the last release. So to me, this is
Yep.
this is EP4 because we had For the
Yeah.
Stainless Steel in early
Yeah, I was
22.
about to say, I'm like, it's not full length,
Yeah.
but like kind of, well, like, in the hardcore world, it can maybe be considered full length since hardcore can be so short of records. But yeah, I get that. I
Yeah.
totally get that.
We will do like a proper LP. That's probably the next thing, but we might do like a split or something. I don't know between this and then. But I do want to make the proper like LP1 No Cure experience sometime after this one. But yeah, so I don't know. This record is a little different than the Commitment to Permanence or Curse from Birth or For the Stainless Steel, and a product of that is just we have been touring so much, and a lot of times
Hmm.
I have ideas on tour and I, type them into my computer, and because I use a program called Tux Guitar, which is like Ultimate or Pro, a Guitar Pro, but free and not as fully featured. And I've just been using that since forever because it was free and I was a young child that wanted to learn, Avenged Sevenfold guitar tabs and Hatebreed guitar tabs and stuff. So I'm just really good at Tux Guitar now. Even though I know that Guitar Pro can do more, I like Tux Guitar. It has a cute little penguin guy. Love it. But yeah, so
Love the penguin.
just writing a bunch on tour and then like blasting out songs with Aesop between tour. It just, I don't know. There's a lot of conceptual vision for this record, more so than like what songs were actually going to sound like. If that makes any sense because like I knew I wanted to do something different than the Commitment to Permanence because the commitment to permanence is kind of like this is kind of like a general, who we are and some things I think, right? But this record I wanted to like make. I don't want to call it a concept record because like that sounds like I should be beaten up and put into a locker and spit on. But I wanted to talk about some shit, right? And that's why there's someone from Alabama that's like done something for Alabama metal and slash or hardcore over the years on each song because it's a very underrepresented place, but to me it's my life.
Hmm.
I've been there. I've seen so much cool stuff come and go that like the general rest of the world isn't really tuned into. So I saw that No Cure was, kind of like doing more stuff, and I was like, this is my opportunity to tell our story about our place and make a claim about it, and I thought it was something different. So that's kind of like the purpose of it. I knew before, basically what I'm trying to say is I knew before what the songs were going to sound like, what the purpose of it was, which was
Hmm.
not the
Hmm.
case for the previous records. The other ones were kind of just like I wrote some songs, but this one it had purpose from day one, and it took me a minute to convince the rest of the band that that was a good idea. And it's too soon to know if it was a good idea, but it's the record that I needed to make because
Yeah.
I'm from Alabama and that's a big part of who I am. And I've toured a lot and met a lot of people that are very surprised that I'm from Alabama and they have, some not nice things to say about that just because that's what you're told to think. And I'm kind of trying to show people that there's more to Alabama than what they think, and there's bands here and there's cool shows and there's a lot of people that care about a lot of stuff that are trying to make things better. I'm not trying to like act like it's not a place where bad things happened. I know that. I'm owning that and I'm just trying to say, yeah, I know we're working on it. So I wanted to make a record about that. That makes any sense.
I love that. I love that. It's now just like coming to consciousness for me that like, oh yeah, like all these features, because there's obviously like there's a feature on every song. It's now just like coming to my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, every band that's featured is also from Alabama.
Yeah.
I didn't put that, I didn't put two and two together
Yeah.
until just this moment, until you mentioned that.
Yeah, I purposely picked people that I have like a personal relationship with, not necessarily like the biggest band for all of them, right? Because I
Right,
think
right.
because part of the purpose of this is I want people to look at the track listing and be like, oh, I've only heard of a couple of these guys. Like, who are these other people? Like, I want that's like kind of the point. Like, I want them to like listen to the song and be like,
Hmm.
okay, what's Wretched Blessing? Like I want them to go figure out
Right.
what that is. Like, who's Kahan? And I don't know. I think that's part of the purpose of it. It's like I don't want to say a period piece, but like that's kind of like where my head was at. I just wanted to like
Hmm. Hmm.
use my first label release to have my friends on our songs, let them do their thing, talk about things they care about, and have like a statement to make if that makes any sense, and like double
Hmm.
down on who I am.
Hmm. Hmm. I want to keep talking about the new album, but this is like coming to mind now, especially, knowing that you care so much about being from Alabama as a hardcore metalcore band. Uh, so I grew up, Cullen and I both grew up in South Dakota, which I would imagine a lot of people would stereotype as sort of the Alabama of the North
Right.
in a lot of ways. So we grew up in South Dakota, where there's almost virtually no heavy bands at all. Like maybe there's a Earth Groans. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever
I
heard
know.
of
I
Earth
know. I
Groans,
know
but like
Jeremy.
Jeremy from Earth
Yeah.
Groans. Jeremy's a great guy. He's from South Dakota, born and raised. And there's I know we've interviewed them before. I'm totally blanking, and I feel really bad right now, but I'm blanking on their name. But they're from South Dakota as well. But they were on Face Down Records for a while. But anyway, there has been a little tiny bit, just like maybe a couple bands, at least that I'm aware of heavy bands that have come from South Dakota. But where when Cullen and I were growing up, and we were huge Solid State Records and Face Down Records fans, we grew up in that like Christian heavy music world. Almost every band was from the Southeast, whether they were from Georgia or Alabama or Florida, North Carolina. They're just like Tennessee, like just that whole South to us was like just so many unbelievable bands. And obviously there's tons of stereotypes about the South or whatever, but there is so much good heavy music that comes out of the South. And a question that often comes up for both Cullen and I is, what do y'all like drinking in the water? Like, what's in the water y'all drinking that is basically like making such unbelievable heavy music? Is it something where just like you get a few bands that just start that culture and everybody is like, that is the thing that I want to do when you're 14 and you show up to a show? Because again, like growing up in South Dakota, there is no, like when you're 14 years old, like if there's a concert you go to, it's a country concert or whatever. Like there's no heavy bands to go to. So yeah, I'm just curious, like what is it that for you all that like just breeds all of this great heavy music in the Southeast? Even if it is kind of obviously it's probably still like a sort of a subculture or counterculture.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a good answer to that question. I just found these things organically and loved it. I don't know how everyone else found it, but I don't know. When I first started going to shows, church shows were like the thing. So like
Right.
we had tons of like big venue spaces where parents were comfortable dropping their kids off, which is pretty important because
That's a huge part of it.
yeah, because they know that their teenager is not going to get drugged or something, right? And that's why even still I book a lot of shows at a place called Insanity Skate Park because I know, well, for one, it's sentimental to me because I grew up going to shows there. Like the first time I ever saw my wife in person, before I even knew who she was, I remember seeing her there as like a very young teenager. So like it's a very emotional place for me. But I know that a kid that's like kind of interested in like what might be going on in heavy music, like their dad will be like, "Yeah, I'll take you to the skate park. It's cool. I'll get you at 9:30." I know that that's a big
Hmm.
factor because I grew up going to shows there and at more accessible, safe places. Because like you're not going to take your kid to the shitty bar to go see
Right.
a band that you don't know. Like at least like a more like normie parent isn't going to do that.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
so that is, I think, a pretty big factor in why there were so many Christian metalcore bands for a long time because we had the infrastructure of all the churches to have that. I was never like a religious person, really. I had a phase once wanting to go to church, but that was really just to talk to girls. Uh, so I never really identified with any of that, but I liked a lot of the Christian metalcore bands when I was a young teenager,
Yeah.
because like that was what was happening. And I didn't like find out about like hardcore properly until a few years later, and then I was like, oh, that shit's way cooler.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, around that, I mean, you guys kind of pride yourselves on the fact that you all are straight edge. And I don't know if this is something we've ever had like a really like kind of straight up conversation about on the podcast, but I've definitely explored a little bit around just like straight edge culture and all of that. But I'd love to just kind of hear maybe your own personal take on like what is important about that for you all in this band. Like what, yeah, I'm just curious, like what is it that like draws you to being straight edge and something that like you sort of pride yourselves on.
sure. And I mean, it's I've been straight edge for a very long time now. I claimed when I was 14, and I claimed as soon as I found out what straight edge was, because I didn't know that like that was an option. I knew
Hmm.
from a young age that I did not want to replicate a lot of the patterns of substance abuse that I had observed.
Hmm.
And I was very overjoyed to find out that this music that I was already starting to find, like there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are straight edge, that, like kind of running the shit, And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because I remember my path into figuring out what straight edge was is kind of weird. It's kind of goofy. So like, there's this Australian metalcore band called I Kill the Prom Queen that I've always loved. I found them really early, so they're super formative to me. Their record, Music for the Recently Deceased, I loved it. I love all their records now because I don't know, they're just really important to me. I found them on YouTube from like related videos because I would just go on YouTube and watch music videos.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Like as a kid, I would just go watch music videos. I was like, it's time to watch 18 music videos, and that's how I found them. And I remember that there's a video of like a lyric video or like just a general song upload, and they had a promo of the band, and one of them was wearing I think an Earth Crisis shirt, and I was like, okay, what's Earth Crisis? I like I Kill the Prom Queen. They like Earth Crisis. I'm gonna go figure out what Earth Crisis is.
So you have to you feel almost feel like obligated that you have to like Earth Crisis, right?
Yeah, I put it on and I was like, whoa, what's this shit? And then was like, okay, this is a straight edge band. This is the culture, right? Because Earth Crisis like lays it out for you like it's the fucking
Yeah.
commandments, and they make it
Great way to describe
yeah
it.
they make it really simple for like a new person to understand, and that's part of like what's special about it. Besides the fact that they have some really amazing music. So anyway, that was kind of my path into it, and it was really motivated by like not wanting to repeat the things I had seen people do to each other or things that had happened to me as a young person. And now for me, it's still that like I don't want to be a part of a cycle of abuse, right? And I want to be locked in. I have a lot of goals. I gotta do shit. I gotta get it done. And those distractions are distractions. So I'm just not interested. I'm busy. I don't want to do drugs. I got shit to do.
All right. Do you think it's something even like beyond? So I mean, obviously there's things like drugs and alcohol that people can and do abuse, but for you, like, does straight edge, does it even exist beyond just like substances themselves that like you can feel like, oh, this is like taking over my life, where it's like, oh, there's like certain like, oh, if fame could be like a certain substance, is that something that you want to avoid? Or are there certain things even beyond just like the substances like of alcohol and drugs in the straight edge world that you feel like, oh, this also needs to be maybe avoided because it can like warp or change the way that we should relate to one another? Like, you kind of get what I'm like saying, like there's things like, fame or money or whatever that like, oh, if we just pursue those things, it has the same sort of addictive uh possibility that like drugs or alcohol could, and like we should avoid those things too. Like, do you wonder, like, or do you think through like for you as a straight edge person, like, do you think that those things are just like as something that we should be sort of avoiding?
I mean, I've never looked at it that way. For me, it is purely in the physical sense.
Okay,
Uh,
okay. I was just curious, like, if it's something even beyond that or not.
I mean, the only way I really extrapolate like the same kind of logic is I just try to kind of take care of myself, get good sleep, eat well, exercise.
Right.
But like that's not a tenet of the straight edge. But the same part of the same reason why I like being straight edge is the same reason why I like trying to do that kind of thing. If I don't get my eight
Right.
hours, I'm like, I'm gonna die soon. I
Right.
try to really take care of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious because I know that like even for some straight edge people, they even go to the point of like becoming vegan for a variety of kind of like ethical reasons,
Hmm.
because they sort of see it as like a manifestation or like a continuation of being straight edge. And so I was just curious, like, if there's like maybe even like sort of like non-physical things that are tried to like be avoided within the straight edge world, for maybe similar reasons to why you would avoid drugs or alcohol.
I mean, I can't say that there is for me. I
Yeah.
personally just don't look at it that way. But that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
interesting, and maybe that's one of the takeaways I have from this conversation is to think of like
Yeah.
how like that the pursuit of purity of mental state is like more than just not getting fucked
Yeah.
up. I get what you're
Totally.
saying. It's just not how
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
looked at it before this.
Yeah. I was just curious if that was something. So wonderful. Well, last kind of a couple questions around, at least just around the album, and then we'll chat about your top five influential albums. But for this new album, again, like, you know, I do think like this is very classic No Cure in a lot of ways, but also there is like some stuff just in terms of the sound. And I mentioned I think it's just more well produced than past No Cure albums, and that's at the like shame any of the past albums. I think they're great albums, but there's just like a next kind of element of like you're trying to do better in this album than in previous albums. But do you think there's like just even from like a songwriting perspective, or is there something where you're like, oh, we're trying to do something different in this new album than previous albums? Like, I'm just curious, like, is there something unique that you're trying to do with this album that maybe, at least that was intentionally done, that was different than previous albums?
I mean, in a way, yeah. One thing I really wanted to do with I Hope I Die Here is that I wanted each song to have a purpose and identity. And like, I didn't
Mm.
want any listener to be like, oh, am I on track 3 or track 5? I wanted it to be like, each song is its own thing, if that makes any sense. And I'm not going to say that other songs of ours bleed together because I think that we make good songs. That's why we're here, you know?
Right, right.
But I think that I was very intentional with that on this one. So there's a bit more range between the songs, just naturally with that. So that's definitely a factor. But to speak on the production briefly, we've been stepping up how we do things intentionally. So our first EP in early 2022, which was when we announced the band, started playing shows, blah, 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 blah. It's called For the Stainless Steel. We recorded that record and mixed it ourselves. Like Duncan, our drummer, like ran the operation. He had his friend Wavy J help with it, but like it was very internally. And Duncan is not a record maker. He just has made some records. That makes any sense. So it's extremely
Hmm.
DIY and raw, and that's just because of how we made it. And I love that record. It sounds kind of bad, but it sounds bad in an aesthetically cool way because
Yeah, yeah.
there was interesting intent and vision behind it. And then Curse from Birth, which we followed that up like 6 months later in late 2022 or like fall-ish. No, I think it was October. That sounds right. That one we recorded ourselves, but then paid a friend to mix that one. So instead of it being entirely in house, it's kind of split. And then for the Commitment to Permanence, we recorded the instruments with a guy in Alabama, Kevin Langley, and then sent them off to get mixed. And that mixing process was pretty brutal. It was like 7 revisions to get something that we liked.
Mm.
So I didn't want to do it that way again. So when it came to the Alabama record, I was like, hey, Kevin, just do the whole thing. But I had a very clear vision of like what I wanted each part of the mix to sound like, if that makes any sense. So I was able to communicate to him like what needed to happen. And I mean, Kevin's been recording bands of mine since I was 15 years old. So we have a long relationship, and it felt important to get the Alabama guy to do the Alabama record. So that was never a question.
Hmm.
And he really just made the mix awesome, honestly. It was like one set of revisions, and it was like, oh, we're missing a guitar part. Can you turn that part back up? It was like that kind of thing. Like he nailed it pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah.
I was really happy with it. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. We rushed it really fast, honestly, because we recorded it in June of this year. And so,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
And we didn't submit the masters until the first week of October, like into the first week of October. That's not what you're supposed to do. Just so anyone knows, that's not ideal. But you can do it. And I just like to work fast sometimes. So we rushed through like the mixing phase and like revisions phase, and that's okay because we knew what we wanted. So yeah, it just came together fast. But that's why we don't have physicals yet because we didn't give Sharp Tone enough time.
Yeah, it went too fast.
Yeah, I guess Nuclear is doing the physicals, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
I think honestly, I think it's like perfectly mixed and mastered in terms of my own like ears around what metalcore should sound like. Where some stuff, especially in that like metalcore world, is too produced, where
oh
you
yeah,
just lose a little bit of that rawness. But then like some of the stuff, especially like early stuff from like the early 2000s, whatever, it just sounds like garbage.
yeah,
And like there's just this fine line of how that stuff should be mixed and mastered, where it's just like this perfect blend of balance, where it sounds clean, but also it still sounds raw, like the way it should. And honestly, I think you all nailed the perfect balance,
well, I
like to
appreciate
the
that.
point where at least, and obviously, like who am I? But I think it's just perfectly balanced, where like I wouldn't stray too much farther from like from it in terms of my like own opinion. Like I think it's just perfectly balanced. I would like just like keep moving along in terms of like production, like mix and mastering stuff. I think it's nailed
I
perfectly.
appreciate that. I mean, part of why it sounds the way it does is because of how we recorded it. The drums were done in big comps, so like Duncan would just play
Yep.
the song, then he'd play it again, then maybe he'd play it a third time, right? And then we'd be like, it was good through this part, then we'll take this part, this half here, and that was like it. And it was very minimally edited. Like he's just really, really good at drums. And
Right.
because it was able to be so natural, because he's so good, like there's a lot of like timing variations and stuff that like makes it sound like a band is playing because a guy played the drums. It's like not some MIDI horse
Yeah.
shit. Dude, so many like
Exactly.
I am so sick of hearing
That's the
bands.
huge part. To me, it's like the drums. If I can immediately hear that it's like some MIDI drums, I'm done.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
it's unconscionable unless it's for demos, honestly. And that's harsh. Some people listening to this might be offended. I'm sorry. Make cooler shit. Sorry. I can't live with that anymore. And
Get a good drummer.
yes, just lock in. And the vocals are super raw. Also, I mean, there's effects like there's a distortion and compression, whatever. But like the way I recorded it is I just held the mic in my hand and I did the line. It's not on the grid, like he didn't like chop it up and like time align it or anything. And there's like very minimal reinforcement. There's no doubles. I just fucking screamed the song, and I don't know. I think it adds something. You hear all my breaths because I had to breathe
Hmm.
to scream. So I don't
Hmm.
know. I just think there's some rawness to it, but it's also a really well done mix because Kevin's awesome. I hope that the record catches on and then like more out of state bands are like, yo, who did the No Cure record? Oh, I never heard of that guy. That's part of the reason why I
Yeah.
wanted it to be the guy that I've always been recording with. That
Yeah.
that felt right to me.
Yeah, I think it's just the like a masterfully produced and just mixed and mastered kind of metalcore album. Like to me, it's got the perfect balance of stuff that's just like it sounds clean enough, and also it still sounds raw enough. It's just this like perfect, and it's a fine line to like get it in that perfect balance. And I think you guys are right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's evil for sure. It's also gross sounding. Like the guitar tones are nasty, very blown out, evil guitar tones. But it's like clear enough that you can like tell like when the note is changing. But
Yeah, yeah,
you don't get every exact detail because it's still like a very extreme metal record. It's like to me, it's pretty far outside the realm of like what people would think of when they hear metalcore. But I mean, I'm not here to debate what genre we fall in. We do a lot of metalcore tours. I know that. But I think a good niche for us is being the evil band on the otherwise, more corporate, easy to listen to tour.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys think of all the sort of bands in this vein or in this world, but to me, like a band, just in terms of just production style of like what this particular album sounds like, that it just reminds me, not to say like style wise, it reminds me of this, but just the production of it sounds similar to me. Is Vane FM,
Hmm,
with their last album from a couple years ago. Just the guitar work in terms of the production style sounds similar. Again, not to say
sure.
that it's you guys aren't doing the same kind of thing that Vane FM is doing, but just the sort of the vocal production, the guitar production, the drum production, it sounds in the same sort of avenue of like really great. Again, to me, it's like a perfect album in terms of that like balance of production.
Well, I appreciate
So
that.
that's why I really appreciate about it. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
mean, I do like that band, but it
they're a damn good band.
it was not on my list of mixed references, but I still think they're awesome.
They're a great band. So, well, I know we're getting close here. So let's chat about top 5 influential albums. So yeah, what are the albums that have maybe shaped you as a person, as a musician? Love to hear some of those albums.
Okay, might take me a second to think of all of these, and
That's totally fine.
no one can yell at me, but I got to talk about Avenged Sevenfold, Waking the Fallen. I got to talk about it. Desecrate through reverence. The reality of the situation is you're moshing. You're going to mosh. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm glad I got in that band early. I got into City of Evil first because that was
Hmm.
the crazy guitar record, and I was like, I want to be a good guitar player.
Yep.
But
Right.
then I
Right.
went back to Waking the Fallen and Sounding the Seventh Trumpet, and those are a lot more like aggro records. And I don't know, there's just a lot of really cool ideas there. So that's definitely been super influential on me. I am one of the guys that thinks that Matt Shadows is a very cool vocalist. I know people make fun of his nasaliness. I don't care. I think it's badass. So that's got to be
Legendary
it's
band.
got to be on my top five. Hatebreed, Perseverance. Come on,
Ooh, okay.
get a grip. How can you make so many awesome metalcore songs? How can you do it? How is this allowed? It's just unbelievable. Just
They played at Furnace Fest like what 2 or 3 years ago now. I forget what year they played, but they played just a couple years ago,
it
right?
was 23, I think.
Yeah. What? Okay. Did you go to that show?
Yeah, I was there. I was like,
Of course.
yeah. I mean, I guess people can't see my hands because this is a podcast, but I put horns up.
Hell yeah, you did.
That shit was awesome. I gotta talk about I Killed the Prom Queen, music for the recently deceased. Um,
Really? Okay.
yeah,
All
I
right.
love that
See,
record.
see, that's a band. I know you mentioned the name, and I'm like, I kind of maybe remember that name, but I am not familiar with their music
Sure.
at all. So, like, the fact that you're mentioning them, I'm like, all right. After this interview, I'm gonna check them out.
This is for sure nostalgia baited a little bit, and I don't
Okay.
care. It's a comfort record for me. I put it on, and I remember when things were a little more simple, and I remember when my parents loved each other, and I liked that part of life quite a lot, you know? But yeah, that record really resonated with me. I know that's like not a very popular record, especially amongst people like in my cohort, and I don't give a fuck, honestly. I like it. Their singer at the time for that record, his name was Ed Butcher. He was in a band called
Okay.
Eternal Lord before them that I also thought was cool. But I hadn't heard the particular combination of like actual like death metal influenced vocals on a metalcore record like that. That was like kind of like accessible and easy to listen to for me at the time. So I just really loved that record. I don't know. It has cool guitar work. It's got mosh breakdowns, but really it was Edward's voice that really stuck with me. And now, still, he's been a big influence on like me trying to find my own voice. And I don't know if anyone would draw that conclusion, but like me trying to imitate him is kind of like how I found like my main voice I do a lot in No Cure.
I love that.
No one has,
Also, by the way, what an incredible band name too.
yeah, it's very MySpace emo,
Totally MySpace.
but I don't know for whatever reason. I don't know. I really like that record, and their 2014 record too, Beloved. I like that one a lot also. I was a little older when that one came out, but I was like, yeah, this is riffy. They're just going fast, and I like that. It's kind of a return to like form of like not scene kid metalcore anymore, because like
Yeah.
music for the recently deceased is a little bit scene kid metalcore, and that's fine. I like that. I guess my fourth one. I can't. It's really hard to pick between Foundation records. I love Foundation. Do I have to? Do I have to pick between them?
It'd be awfully nice if you could pick one.
Um, I,
One.
when the smoke clears, Foundation. I'm
Ooh.
again the sick reality of the situation is that you are moshing, and it's just beautiful lyrics. It's a straight edge band from Atlanta. 2.5 hours from where I
Mhm.
live now in Birmingham. It's just perfect. I don't know. The way they go about music was just so cool, and I found them like not too long after I found Hatebreed because that's kind of like when they were starting to go around and stuff, and they were super influential on me. I love that band. That's why for Edge Day this year we put out a little cover of one of their songs because I wanted to. We wanted to. It's just
Mhm.
cool. I know that like the rule is 10 years, and that record came out I think in 2011, unless I'm getting confused. So yeah, but yeah, I guess the fifth record, Reign Supreme by Dying Fetus.
Oh, Dying Fetus. Oh, that's a great call.
Yeah, so it's undeniable. Love it. And I mean, I remember I was 12 and my PE coach at the time asked me who my favorite band was, and I lied and I said Dying Fetus. That was not true. But I was aware of them and I've liked them for a long time.
Wait, what when you tell your coach, hey, my favorite band is Dying Fetus,
Yeah,
and they're not aware of bands like this
not at all.
and band names like this, what does a coach say to the fact that you say, yeah, my favorite band is Dying Fetus?
Yeah, my coach's name was Coach Hodge. I remember this very clearly. He was like, I don't know how to describe him. He's like just a funny black guy. If that makes any sense, That's he's just a funny guy. And he was like,
He didn't have any judgment on the fact that your
no,
favorite
he
band
did.
was Dying
He
Fetus.
did, 100%. Because I was just trying to be edgy, so I said the scariest band name I could think of. And he was like, Dying what? Fetus? And
Run some
I
laps.
was like, yes, sir. And he said, why? Or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, kind of like, why are you listening to that? So, I don't know. And I mean, I was aware of Dying Fetus, but I definitely got more into them as I appreciated the genre more beyond just being an
Right.
edgy teenager. And I was like, oh no, this is real stuff, which is why people ask me like what the general initial idea for No Cure was, and the way I describe it personally is trying to do like Foundation Hatebreed stuff, but also like Dying Fetus and like meet it somewhere in the middle, you know.
Yeah.
So Dying Fetus's parts are definitely very influential on me. So that's why I gotta say Reign Supreme. But yeah, I mean, if you ask me tomorrow, I might say 5 different records, but those are pretty important to me.
Love that. Love that. Well, if Coach Hodge is listening right now for some reason, clearly Dying Fetus was not a phase.
No, it
So,
wasn't.
you might have been judgmental in the moment, but it was clearly not a phase. And so that much you got to respect.
I mean, he was a good sport about a child telling him that his favorite band was Dying Fetus. He laughed, it was cool. But yeah, I was a little shithead for saying that.
I
And
get that. I get that.
and I was a poser
I
for
get
saying that because that wasn't my favorite band. My favorite band at the time was Avenged Sevenfold.
I mean, but also like he wouldn't have known Avenged Sevenfold. But I respect the fact that you're like, what's going to be the edgiest thing I can say right now, and I can respect that.
What's a boy to do? Can I not have fun?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You got to have all that fun when you're in sixth grade when you're straight edge, right? Because
I wasn't straight edge yet, but
yeah. So you got to take advantage of when you can. Just kidding.
yeah.
All right, Blaythe, what do you want to plug? Obviously, new albums out, brand new. Guys are on tour clearly because you literally just played a show about an hour ago. But yeah, what do y'all want to plug?
It would be very nice if all the listeners of this esteemed podcast went after this to go listen to the record that we have spoke so kindly of. I worked very hard on it, and I think it's good, and I think I will continue to think it's good throughout my life. Though time will tell, maybe I'll turn on it, but right now I'm pretty stoked on it. I would like it if these people came to our shows and bought 100 t-shirts so we could keep playing
Love
shows.
it.
That's very nice when people do that. We're on tour with Vomit Fourth right now in the Northeast mostly, but early January we're flying to Europe for the first time. We're doing the whole mainland for the most part.
Hell yeah.
Gonna go crazy mode, and then after that we're coming right back to America. We have like a few days, and then we're doing the whole United States again with Throne,
Jeez.
and that's that Swedish band
Yeah.
that is really good at Spotify. They've got that figured out. They are playing after every song. I don't know how they did it, but people definitely like that band. Those shows are like some of them are already selling out and upgrading venues. I'm like, wow, what a nice tour to be a support band on. So I'm really excited for
I
that.
guess so.
And they wanted
Yeah.
us, so who am I to deny a guy that asked for me? I'll go.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
You have no ego about it. You're just like, I'll be a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and people don't always agree with this, like in bands, like I don't care who I tour with a lot of times, unless they're like, verifiably shitty people. They don't have to sound like me for me to still be the band I am. Like I'll do a Gideon tour and I'll turn around and do a Vomit Fourth tour. I
Yeah.
don't care. Like if they're nice people and the shows are cool, like I want to be there. I don't think
I
that
love that.
doing tours of bands outside of our genre are like going to make us sound different because that's not how music works. I'm the one with the microphone. So I'm cool with doing out genre stuff just to be in front of different people. I don't think
I
that
love that.
I'm not an elitist about this at all. I don't enjoy that. I think it's lame. Maybe that makes me not cool enough for the super cool kids, and I don't care. Kill yourself. Probably can't say that. Can I say that? Can I say kill yourself on the podcast?
I'll just have to make sure that there's an E next to the episode, but that's all right.
Do not kill yourself. Please live forever.
Try your best to live forever.
Wait, so the E is explicit? That was too much for you.
I don't know. Maybe I mean, I usually put an E next to our episodes just in case.
Okay.
Even if it's not very E.
Yeah.
Just to like make sure
Yeah.
that I'm safe, that I don't get demonetized or something.
I don't want anyone that doesn't like me to kill themselves. That was a joke. Unless you do, and then that's weird. I shouldn't matter that much to you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like you're definitely putting way too much stock into Blaythe.
I am just a guy.
Very much a guy from Birmingham. Like there's nobody from Birmingham worth dying for.
I don't know what to say to that. There's nobody from anywhere worth dying for.
Well, maybe there's a guy from Bethlehem, but just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What's his name?
Jesus of Nazareth.
Not familiar. Never met him.
Never mind. All right, fair enough. Blaythe, what else do you want to plug?
Yeah, so we've been doing this VIP thing on this tour where we put you in the trailer, and yeah, that's the whole experience. It's pretty good. People,
You just do you like travel on the trailer? Like, what's the gist of being? Do you get locked up in the trailer? What's going on in the
well,
trailer?
I don't want to like give away the surprise
Okay.
about the trailer, but yeah, it's really making this whole thing a lot more profitable. We're actually a rich band now because of our trailer VIP experience. Like, it's going pretty good now. People are having
I
a lot to say about the trailer no cure experience.
do sales for that spike around like October 31st by any chance?
No, I have a knife. I have two big knives, and most people are pretty down when I suggest nicely and calmly that it's time for the trailer part.
Is that what the edge and straight edge means? Is your two knives that you're speaking of right now?
No, but they help.
So it's two straight edge. So it's actually not just you're not just straight edge. You're double straight edge.
Uh, no, I just have some knives and I'm straight edge.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, if you do happen to find yourself in the Midwest, you may or may not have a taker on this little uh, you know van and trailer experience.
Yeah, we are gonna rob you, Mason.
I've, I mean, I often joke if you end up like stealing my identity or rob me, you're going to end up in more debt than you went in with. So just saying.
I'm good at leveraging.
Clearly, with your two straight edges. So, well, Blaythe, so much fun chatting a little bit more about No Cure, and especially right after a show. Again, I can't I can't thank you enough for doing this. Like, I can't imagine like what your voice and just like playing guitar and just like going all out for a show, and then immediately saying, "All right, I'm gonna go talk to a random dude on the internet for an hour." Like, I just like I think that's super cool to me. So,
Yeah.
uh, I definitely have seen you guys at Furnace Fest. It's so much fun to watch you guys play. If you guys end up in the Midwest, I will be there. I can assure you that. So, super stoked. New album's unbelievable. So, thanks so much for chatting more about it. And hopefully, I get to see you guys sometime again here in the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know if you want to come to one of them. I think that there's some Midwest dates on the Throne Tour.
Let's do it.
We're the two of four, so it doesn't really matter where it's going. I'm going to drive there anyway, so I don't really look at it very much, you know. But yeah, we'll be out there. It'll be cool, and we're gonna try to kill some people.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's do it.